Well, welcome, Richard.
Thanks.
Welcome to the Real Talk. It's been a long time.
It has been, Rob. It's good.
Oh,
it's good to be here.
man, dude, it's been back in the days, you know. And look, we got some toys, bringing it out. So why don't you tell us a little about Richard? What do you do? And tell us a little about what you do at Horizon Hobby.
So I'm a senior product developer now. I've been with the company 25 years.
Okay.
And I actually started out with Losi, which is where we met.
Yes.
It was Team Losi Racing back in the day, and I was doing the team management, and you were one of our drivers. Yep. So I was working in that part of the company as far as a team manager, and then Team Losi was acquired. God, I don't even remember the year now, but they were acquired by Horizon Hobby, which used to be their distributor.
Early 2000s or late 90s?
I think it was early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, it was early 2000s. And so basically, I've kind of been with the company for 25 years. I started out with team management. I've worked my way through doing all kinds of different things, and I've been a product developer for like the last 13 years.
Oh, wow. So what does that entail, being the senior product developer? What's your daily job duties? What are you creating? What are your concepts?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying when everybody hears that we work for an RC car company, they think, oh, you must play with RC cars all the time. No, it's about 1% of the job where I actually get to drive the cars and have a good time. Basically what we do is it's kind of a interesting dynamic the way that we work in the surface division. A lot of times you hear companies that actually have the marketing team telling the product team what they want made. It's a little bit more on the opposite side because we're all enthusiasts. Yeah. All the guys who work from the engineers to the product developers like myself that manage the projects and stuff, we're all into it. Whether we're into rock crawling, monster trucks, off-road racing, gas, nitro racing, I mean, whatever it is, we're all some part of it and into it. And so being that's how we work, we actually have a meeting where we discuss what kind of products do we think could come out that could meet the market needs that we're into in our specific part of the different RC categories. And so I will actually propose an idea, and then we have a whole process because our corporate company is in Champaign, and our surface division is in Southern California. And we have both warehouses because we're also the largest distributor of hobby-grade products, I think, in the world, to be honest. And so in the West Coast office is where we do the development stuff. We'll come up with ideas. We'll work together as a team. And from concept, the next step will be, all right, you want to make this happen. Obviously, the money handlers want to know, well, what are we spending and why, and what is this all about? We'll then go on to processes of, I'll propose a project. We'll get the okay from the team on the margins being made, what the tooling costs are going to be involved, what it does to the market or for the market. We get that basic approval, and I'm allowed to have a designer start to design what's in my mind, basically. So I'm not good at we need to do 12 degrees of caster, and it needs to have 1 degree of toe in it, and then the geometry of the I don't know any of that stuff. I wanted to look like a trophy truck.
Yeah. Well, at the consumer level, you would say that would be them. But I want to take a step back through this process is, how did you get an RC cars? Myself, I mean, we share some of the same common interests back then, but how did you get into it? Just being an enthusiast?
Yeah. I mean, the crazy part is I've been doing this now. It's going to be, I was 12 when I started, 1982.
I was 10 when I got my first RC car. Yeah.
So it's almost going to be 40 years. Next year will be 40 years I've been doing RC stuff.
Wow.
And it started out as a hobby. I saw this Tamiya video somehow. I don't remember how I saw it at a hobby shop. I wanted a Subaru Brat for my 12th birthday. My dad got it for me for Christmas, and it took me like a week to build it. I mean, now I do cars in like 3 hours, but it took a week to build that thing. And then, man, it's progressed. It went from playing with them to, which we can talk about some more, playing with them to, there was RC racing. I went to RC tracks, to working at a hobby shop, to running a racetrack, to working in the warehouse at the Team Losi, to what I've been doing now. I've literally turned my hobby into my career.
I mean, it's fascinating where it has taken you, because, I was probably 10 years of my life was there, and we knew each other for a while. I was my team manager, and, I was probably from 10 to I was probably 10 years. Yeah. From starting at 10 until about I was 20, it was my life.
Yeah.
It was, everybody, we're all indulged. That was our lives, we were all indulged in that. So as I said, from going from this point of, working for Losi, and I remember, as I said, you were a team manager through this process, really what has inspired you to keep going in RC? What is it that, you know, that has that itch, that fire that you love this?
You know, what's funny is I won't necessarily do it on the weekends, but there's just something about making these cars. I just love it. I just love the scale aspect of it. And I've been fortunate because, you know, when we first started out in the first 10 years that we knew each other, it was all about racing, like our buggies and stuff like that. But I always had a dream of wanting to do the scale stuff. And that didn't quite fit the brand back then to do scale replica vehicles, which is what I started out with. To me, it was all about scale type vehicles. And once Horizon acquired Losi, it gave me an opportunity to start going that path. So being down that path of being able to make scale stuff is what keeps the passion going. I love creating models of, I can't afford a Raptor, I can't afford a trophy truck, you know, but I can make an RC one and still go have some fun and pretend I'm living out that thing. So that's what keeps the drive going, is that I just love cars and making stuff, and then getting to see people enjoy the products I help create. That really is what keeps the fire going.
Hobbyist turn it into a career. Turn it into a career that happens. I mean, through the times of the 90s, early 90s to late 90s when I started, I mean, things have changed. Your perspective is completely different than mine, because I've been removed from that for quite a bit of time, quite many years, over 10 years.
Right.
How is from the 90s to 2000s, now going to 2020s, how is the scale of the perspective of RC in general, the hobbyist, grown from that point?
It's the so when we were doing it in those eras, there wasn't too many ready to run type vehicles, lower cost vehicles. It was all about racing these things, and in that time, components have gotten cheaper for doing ready to run vehicles. The transmitters, the technology, also quite frankly, getting development of manufacturers overseas to help us reduce those costs. And that opened the door to making these vehicles easier for people to get into. Because when we started out, well, what battery do I use? I remember I saved $20 to get a battery, and I didn't have a charger, so I used my dad's 12-volt car battery charger, and I proceeded to blow that battery up on my porch, right? You know, and nowadays we have smart technology with lithium polymer batteries that you don't have to be too crazy careful about, but we literally have smart batteries where now you plug them into a charger. That's it. It recognizes the voltage is needed, how many times it's been run. I mean, there's so many different things. So it's just crazy how it's gone from where we had our race needs, which are still pretty specific, to where we are now with this type of stuff.
Yeah, because the technology, I mean, it's going to completely change. I mean, we can get into some of this technology that's, just like you said, they're ready to run, because back then, just except with batteries. I mean, I remember back when I was like, when we got into competition side, like we were like matching batteries and cells, the C cell batteries of the matching cells. To the, you know, we take we had these specially, you know, we had these special types of tools, or I was doing jigs. We put them in, match the cells, make sure, because at that point, runtime, I remember runtime was 5 minutes. We're like, oh, if we can get full 5 minutes out of this thing at peak performance,
this is my best battery.
You know, a matched battery. And now when I got back into it, thanks for your help, 4 or 5 years ago, we got back, and you got some. I'm like, my car just went for 30 minutes. Yeah, and it didn't stop. And then there's no brushes in my motor anymore. And I remember, because we used to cut the commutators and make sure that, I mean, there was so much more involved with the reliability. And that's how you come to the reliability. One thing I can say is, well, from my perspective, the reliability has completely transformed on the electronics side.
Yes.
From the 90s, or from 80s, 90s to 2000, now to 2020, it's just getting more and more to technology.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot easier for people to get into it. And to enjoy it, quite frankly, because like you said, you went from where we were 5 minutes and we'd have to have 15 battery packs, and then we'd number which one was our best one, and then we'd run them once a day and whatever, that type of stuff, to now you literally, the batteries charge better when they're hotter, and you just go ahead and recharge and recharge and recharge, and these people are getting 30, 40 minutes. That also changed the reliability of the vehicles. We had to change that as well, how reliable they were, because now, as opposed to getting someone who's only running for 5 minutes, now they're getting, you know, a little more crazy at 15-minute mark, like, well, let's see if I could do this. So then that changed the dynamic on materials and the performance and the quality of the vehicles themselves. You know, back when we were racing, we were minimizing the weight as much as possible, you know, structurally making them as strong as possible, but quite, you know, not taking away from the performance. Now we have to worry about beefing these things up because people are watching social media and YouTube, and they're seeing backflips and jumping off of roofs and stuff like that, and the expectations have changed. But yeah, the batteries too, that's a big thing because, you know, in RC car, you can run the same battery all night now, when before we used to, you have to charge new batteries. And then on the sports side of it, like the rock crawling category, you can run 3 hours on one charge.
Wow.
If you want, because it's only a, you know, basically a 35 turn. They still, some run brush motors in some of the crawling stuff. But if you run a 35 turn motor, you literally could run for 3 hours of rock crawling. You'll get bored before you run out of battery is what it's come down to.
Well, that's extremely fascinating. For that hobbyist, though, I think right now reliability, because these cars, I mean, at the level we were racing back then, everything was precision. And it still is precision to this day, but it was a little more fragile. You know, like you hit something, you can break a caster arm, you can break a tie rod pop off, shock. You know, we did a lot of precision into how it went. And I think probably still to this day, I mean, how has the materials changed? The composite, the carbon, graphite, how has that all changed?
Yeah, it's changed over time in a sense that we've added more glass fibers to some of the parts to make them stiffer. Some of them we made them softer. We've developed a lot of different compounds of materials to some vehicles, depending on what category or segment that it's going for, you want to have it be a little more flexible or not, and that type of stuff. Now, on the racing side of it, which I'm not a big part of anymore because I'm so focused on all the ready-to-run type vehicles, but on the race side of it, yeah, it's like Formula One. You know, those racing was like Formula One of RC. And they're doing the same thing where they're taking it down to the bare minimums and that type of stuff. So you have that category that you're focusing on, and you're making these materials that are your F1, and then you have your guys buying your Fords and Toyotas that but have to be able to jump 50 feet, you know, or whatever it is. You know, like you don't drive your Taurus or whatever you got and drive, well, unless you got a rental car back in our days, but
I mean that's grown. So that year, as a perspective, back to that question, so the scale has grown, the user experience, because of course I think social media, that everybody sees what's going on with the YouTubers with all the cars and the durability of them. They're jumping off of buildings. I've seen it. I mean, a lot of the other manufacturers, I remember back in the day, I'm like, I couldn't even jump off something. Like I always have to worry, if I land wrong, there goes my arm. There goes my front arm. There goes these things. And what I've been seeing on, you know, especially on YouTube, I mean, these things are jumping over buildings and they're landing and they're going like 60 miles an hour, all-wheel drive. Yeah. And they're big. Yeah. And they're big and they're durable, and that's what I would say. So from the testing process, because that's what probably is a fun thing for you, is like, okay, put this thing together, I need to test durability. Yeah. So how is that process from concept to build, and then let's see how durable this thing is for the consumer?
So we do take quite a bit of the knowledge that we learned from the TLR side, our race side, and use that towards, okay, we've learned to improve the structural rigidity of something or whatever it is, and we use that on the design of some of these vehicles. So we'll have a pretty good idea of what we think is going to be capable of taking an abuse or impacts and that type of stuff. Now, it's still going to happen no matter what. Someone's going to find a way to break something. But one of our things that we do is we do drop testing. And that's not the fun part, because I have to build it, and then I have to stand, and I have a little template, and it starts at 3 feet, and I have to drop it on a corner over and over and over till it breaks and document that, and then go to 4 feet and 5 feet. That's not the fun part. But it is a way that we can at least test the durability, you know, in a static durability, I guess you could say, by just dropping it. The problem I have, and one of the things I've learned, is that when I go out to test my own vehicle, I tend to be a little lighter on the throttle and a little easier on the corners, because I just don't want to break it if I don't have to. So you do have to give it into other people's hands to go out there and drive it.
Well, you know how to drive, and you have the hand-eye coordination compared to a hobbyist or someone else. Oh, I want to buy it for my son or, you know, adult, but I just want to go full punch and at full speed and just jump off something and see what happens. Yeah. And it is different because you have an expertise at driving. You've been driving for 30, 40 years. You've been in this thing. So you know how to, you know. Yeah.
And I can't help it, though. You're thinking, I'm going to smash into that wall. It's like, oh, I can't do it. I just can't do it. You know, but that's some of the challenges, too. Like I said, is that getting myself to test these things to the max. I do have to literally just like, all right, here you go, neighbor. Yeah. Send it. Yep. Oh, are you sure? Send it. Just drive it however you want to drive it. I don't care. And that's some of the stuff that,
So explain to us right now, for like example, this truck that you've concept that you built. Exactly. So this is a ready to run.
Yeah. So this is a ready to run 10th scale trophy truck. It's based off of a trophy truck.
Baja
platform.
trophy trucks.
Baja trophy truck. It's all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, some people like to say. It's got long travel suspension in the front. We try to replicate what the real trucks look like. I mean, we still have limitations too. Yeah. You know, we can't, you know, like on a trophy truck, they have their pivots are like a 2 inches apart, it seems like. Yeah. We can't do that in scale because then we'd have 2 millimeters of aluminum holding everything together. That's just not going to work. So we do sacrifice some of that stuff, but we try to get as much travel as we can out of the front end, and then, you know, we got the rear end. I
mean, if you guys can see, I mean, everybody can see the video. I mean, look at the travel on this thing. I mean, it's just like a full. How would you call it? What type of three-link suspension? What
it's a four-link.
Four-link suspension.
Right.
And with the travel, I mean, because people don't know, trophy trucks usually have 24 to 36 of travel up and down.
Right.
To go over, you know, 100 miles an hour through whoops.
Yeah.
You know. These are, you know, that scale is unbelievable how it's done there.
Yeah, and it one of the things too that we did was we try to get the cage work to look right. You know, we have the licensing with Ford to actually do the Raptor body on it. It has it's extremely durable for what it is, because this thing out of the box will do 35 miles an hour.
Oh wow!
You know, on a 2S battery, which is 7.4 volts, and it's capable of running 11.1 volts on 3S, and it'll do about almost 50 miles an hour.
Wow. So the battery now, that's the technology. So the battery is changing the power output for the speed.
Yeah, and it's only a slightly bit bigger on the battery pack, and you still can get the same amount of milliamps, so you're getting almost the same runtime, but just that much more voltage.
The voltage, so because of the that's what comes into. So this thing is built full. This is how it comes out of the box.
Right.
And so what comes inside? There's a motor in there. There's a brushless motor.
Yeah. So there's a brushless, sensorless motor because we have censored and sensorless.
What's the difference between sensorless?
The sensors are a little bit more smoother off power because they can find where they're at from 0 to plus or minus in negative or forward or reverse. While a sensorless motor kind of needs a little bit of motivation to kind of get it going. So it's not a very precise. It's not as smooth as a sensored motor can be, but capability-wise and power and speed-wise, they're pretty much exactly the same. It's just you get a lot more smoother power with a sensored motor or sensored system. Sensor systems also cost quite a bit more than a sensorless system. So when you're doing a ready-to-run vehicle, we tend to put the sensorless systems in there, and then if people want to upgrade, they can upgrade to the sensored stuff. But the cool part is this thing comes with a really good power system in it as well. We've developed them now where it's not like you used to get back in the days of cheap electronics and it had a little wiper resistor speed controller and it would melt, or
the resistance,
or if the resistor would crack, then you would lose your different speeds and that type of stuff. We don't have that anymore now. It's so much smoother. But the other cool component to this vehicle now, this is actually a re-release now. We're doing a second version of this model. This model has what's called our smart technology. And the smart technology actually can give feedback from the vehicle back to your radio. So now on the ready-to-run side, what we do is there is 4 LEDs on top of the transmitter, and it will tell you how much battery power you have left in your vehicle while you're running. And then we also have a whole dashboard app that you can put your phone on there, and you can see mile per hour, RPM, temperatures. There's all different types of things you can set up to get it to read. But for the general use, the main thing is how much runtime do I have left? Well, you can literally just look now at your transmitter and you can say, oh, I still have 3 lights. I'm still good to go.
So what's the technology for the sim? Because all there's communicating platforms, and there's sensors in every single part between the battery, the motor, or the heat, because it probably gives heat too. Does it give you heat cycle?
Yeah,
so you've created there's sensors in each point, and then it communicates from the you have your controller transmitter from the receiver that's in there, and it transmits back and forth. So how does that work?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where luckily I have our Spectrum team in Champaign, and those guys handle all that type of stuff for us. So I've never got that hardcore into the development of that stuff. And I wish I knew more about it, but quite frankly, when I'm working on multiple projects, it's like, hey, I need a speed controller and a motor that'll do this and this and this. Oh, here's the system, and here's what you do, and we'll take care of the rest.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I luckily, I don't have to deal with.
So you design the vehicle, and the electronics are basically plug and play.
Yeah, we'll have a whole kind of master set. I mean, we do try and keep it to certain specs or whatever we might need, but we can ask our team at Spectrum, like, hey, what do we need to do, and what can we use? Here's what we're trying to achieve. The other thing we have too that's a big development in the RC vehicles is what we call AVC, which is active vehicle control. So what that does, it's a driver's aid basically, and you can adjust how much help you're getting from the transmitter or the system by just rotating a knob. It's linear. Mm-hmm. So let's say you have a beginner. So here's one of the things, and I'm sure you remember this. When we always wanted people to come into our hobby because we loved it. But what did you do every time you handed to a car? Well, be careful.
Be careful, yeah.
Or just take it easy when you start, or watch out if you go left. This makes it go left. This makes it go right. Yeah. Some of the basics. But there was always a tendency of like, oh man, I hope they don't just smash full throttle into the curb and whatever, or they get bummed that they can't control it and it's not doing what they think it's supposed to do. If someone understands the basic concepts of left, right, throttle, reverse, that's a great start. But a lot of times people would feel bummed that they couldn't get it going around like you and I could drive these things. Well, with active vehicle control, it literally is counter steering and reducing throttle input if needed to keep the vehicle going straight. So when you're driving these vehicles like on sandy, loose dirt conditions, a lot of times people would hit the throttle and it would just spin out and do a donut. Now, you literally can just hit the throttle, not even touch the steering wheel, and it'll go straight on any surface. It'll go straight as an arrow. And it has kind of like a gyro, it's all patented and all that stuff, but it's got gyro stuff in it basically. And literally it senses if it's going left, it'll counter steer right and just do the small inputs that it needs to correct it.
So the car is built like cars today technology. It can sense the wheel spin. It can sense the angle that's going, basically as a gyro, or how the sensors are working inside of it.
Yeah, the input, like the amperage draw from the rear tires, it's just cranking up an RPM. All of a sudden, it realizes, okay, it's going way too fast for it, so it'll pull back. And again, these guys did an amazing job that you literally can adjust how much driver's aid you have from 0% to 100% help. And it will counter. It's fun to watch too, because you can see you're going down, say, a really dirt, sandy, loose path, and you can see the tires doing this, and the truck is just going straight as an arrow. And it was pretty cool when we first started testing it. My daughters aren't into RC cars at all, but they know how to drive them because unfortunately they had to do it because they were my test monkeys. They're like, hey, come over here and drive this thing. But it was pretty fun because we had one of our touring cars back then. And I had it set up to go like 60 miles an hour. It was ridiculously fast. And so I had it turned off, and I asked my daughter, here, drive it. And she was like 18 at the time. I said, here, drive it. And she's like, I don't want to drive this thing. I know it's going to be crazy, and I don't know how to do it. I said, just try it. So she gets it. She spins out. She's doing donuts. She just can't control it. I said, okay, now watch this. I turn the AVC on. All of a sudden, she looks like a pro going up and down. She's like, what did you do? Wow. And it was that instantaneous that she went from not wanting to drive it because she knows what was going to happen to she ran the battery down till it went dead because she had fun that she was driving it back and forth. And that's what we've been able to do in the RC side of it now, is make it a lot more fun for people. They're actually better than they think they're better than they really are because of the technology.
Cars these days make people think that they're better drivers than they are too, because of all the active systems within, with traction control, the process, the warnings that can slow you down, even brake assist.
Right.
So that we've taken that from the actual vehicle, real scale vehicles, now brought it down to a scaled vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that technology and electronics that's I remember we have nothing like that. When I was raised, you had to learn how to car control.
Right.
If you didn't know how to get things sideways and bring it back, or you jump off a jump and how to car control in the air and land perfectly flat.
Right.
And these are precision, especially in off-road. On-road was way more precision because you're going so much faster.
Yeah.
And you're so much more traction.
Yeah.
That there's really not much counter steer. You counter steer, you're going into a pipe. You're flying.
And your car's gonna be gone.
Your car's gonna be gone.
Car's gonna be in pieces. Yeah. And the one thing is that I will say though is that on the race side of it, they have banned all those.
Yeah. Because it takes the skill out.
Yeah, it does take the skill out.
Because driver skill, it was the hand-eye coordination of skill, and it's a track one, but for the hobbyist enthusiast.
Yeah.
That is, it means price. I can see that it gains so much more traction of people. Oh, wow, I can drive this thing without breaking it and crashing it, and I feel better, and I can give it to anybody. Anybody off the street can drive it.
I feel confident every time now. I was like, here, drive it. They're like, no. It's like, trust me, just drive it. As long as you can get the feel of going left and right, because most people have problem coming back towards them, remembering which way to go left and right. But once they can get that down, anybody can drive these cars now. It's really, and that technology is also transferred into airplanes and helicopters. Our company has Eflight, which does a lot of the airplanes, micro helicopters. We don't do the drones. I think we do a racing drone. And again, back in Champaign, Illinois, that's where our team is for the air development side. So we don't really have a lot of contact with those guys. So I do see it when it pops up on the website, or I do see it when we have like our internal website where we're going through projects and stuff. But I don't follow that stuff very well. But they've done the same thing for flight, for helicopters and airplanes. You literally can get these things to correct themselves in the air if they sense something going wrong. You can hit a home button and it'll fly back and come back and land for you. I mean, they've changed the way these hobbies work now for people, because it just makes it that much better. Now, you're going to have the hardcore guys say, that's not flying. Back in my day, I had to crash 20 planes. Well, no, you don't have to do that anymore. And it makes it more enjoyable for people to get into these hobbies and do this. And we're using that control, too, for our boats. Yeah. And now our boats also can self-right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Back in the day, you had to get a little inner tube and go out and go flip it or something. But now, our boats are actually self-righting, too. They've got this whole ballast thing figured out and this water thing now. So if it flips over, it just takes a minute and it'll just come back on its...
That is so fascinating, to the point where just you said, because I remember back when, I remember my parents bought me, so I had the cars. I wanted a plane. I got a helicopter. And it wasn't just it was a gas-powered helicopter, right? People don't realize how many gyros and servos go into that. Right. And in the 90s, that was the most toughest thing to fly, was a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get it off the ground 5 feet without flying into something or doing something.
Yeah, that was hours and hours and hours of practice to just get it to hover.
Yeah, and it's you bring that full circle, is that because now when the drones came out, drones all of a sudden came to the point where you can press a button and they just hover. Or they move to this point. Yeah. And now, bringing that back, it's like, okay, so they just take that technology that they've been learning and they can put into all other types of vehicles to do the assist that to happen. Because, I mean, as I said, if anybody's had a helicopter back, I mean, it was the toughest thing to fly. You were...
and dangerous.
Dangerous. Oh, yeah, of course. Because they weren't electric back then, because there wasn't enough power. Yeah, there wasn't enough power and torque in the motors and the run cycle the longevity of life to run. So everything was gas powered. Yeah, you put fuel in that thing, it's 2-stroke. Right, you're running that thing and it starts up. It sounds cool, but it's dangerous. It can fly. You can hit something. And then now taking that back to the radios, how he's getting into the radios is. When I was around, we had crystals. Everything was crystals, and we only had a certain length, maybe 100 yards or 50 yards that this thing would go, that you didn't have to worry about it taking off. Right. And now, so the technology has shifted from crystallized antennas to, as you can see, let me see this controller right here. This is the simple controller that comes with this guy. So what is, I can say, so on that end is, how far can the distance go for these?
So on these now, you could probably get as far as you can't see it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, for the most part. The reason we have this particular antenna out, because normally the antennas can be hidden and you can just have them underneath the car. Especially if you're racing, you're in a very small circuit. You don't need to worry about the distance, but we know people, when they're doing 35 to 50 miles an hour, they're going to take it pretty far out. So we'll go ahead and throw the antenna out there. But yeah, you can get as far as to where you can't see it anymore, and you can still have control of the vehicle.
So what has happened now, because I remember with this new car that I got about 4 or 5 years ago, everything's matched. Like you sync it. You sync these together. So there's no more antenna. There's no more crystal. So it's basically, what is the technology they use to match?
They're using, it's 2.4 gigahertz, and I can't remember the protocol that they're using. Okay. But what this has, again, changed the landscape of RC and for RTR enthusiasts as well, is that now there's no crystals, like you said. If you're on 27 band, you had 6 crystals to choose from, unless you got some overseas channels that were split in between, or you were on 75 megahertz and you had, I think it was about 12 channels or so, and that was limiting. These things, I think you can run anywhere between 80 and 120 vehicles at one time and not have any interference at all. And it does like that channel hopping, so that's how it kind of figures itself out and all that stuff. Again, I don't have to worry about learning that stuff. I just ask them and they just tell, here's what you're going to do, and that's it. But this is another thing that this technology has changed the landscape as well. One of our categories is rock crawling, scale rock crawling. And we have, one of our brands is called Axial Racing. And basically it's all about off-road scale style vehicles. And we host an event called Axial Fest. And 2 years ago, prior to the COVID thing, and we had a campground area that we would book, We had
So
probably.
you have the rock crawler here. Was that,
Oh, yeah.
Or is it behind me?
I think it's behind you.
So as we're talking, let's talk about the rock crawler.
Yeah.
Here is the rock crawler.
So this is probably one of our bigger categories.
Okay.
Is scale rock
Axial.
crawler.
I can see the name. Yes, it's Axial in the back. Okay.
So it's an axial. They basically replicate. We like to replicate real vehicles for off-roading use.
Mm-hmm.
We do everything from rock buggies to these scale-looking Jeeps to different things. And this is a whole nother crazy category that'll blow your mind. But just to give you an example, because of this transmitters and these radios, we have Axial Fest. We had 3,000 people for the Axial brand only. That's all you were allowed, was to bring Axial branded product to this festival to have fun. We would
King of the Hammers, but
like King of the Hammers,
King of the
but
Hammers.
one brand.
Wow.
And you literally would have at any given time probably 500-600 people, 700 people running their cars on trails at one time. And we had enough trails set up that if you walked and did all the trails, you would hike 22 miles. It's crazy. And that's not even the next part of it with this scale stuff is when we go to, they have events, competitions, right? And they have their rules, they have certain limits, but they are scored like, kind of like golf scoring. You want to have a negative score, you start at 0, and the lower your score is the better. Mm-hmm. So what they'll do is they'll have competitions where these courses might be 5 minutes long and it has 10 gates. They'll have 10 cones that you have to get through. And they make them, I mean, if you saw them in real life, there's no way a real vehicle would do it. But it's pretty amazing what these vehicles can do. And you get scored. If you can get through the gates, you'll get negative 10 points. And to help get this thing staying scale, you actually get bonus points for making your vehicles look more real. So if you have a driver inside your vehicle, you'll get -5 bonus points. Or if you have a winch, a working winch, lights, a hammer, all these little things, you can get up to -40 bonus points in the vehicle. And then what they do is they have mandatory winching, and there's no hand of God. So if you're on the trail and you roll over, you're not allowed to touch it with your hand. You have to take your winch out and hook it to a winch point and then winch your vehicle back over and then winch it back in, and then you're allowed to move forward.
Really?
Yeah. And it's funny because the first time I went to one of these events, I was like, oh, I thought I was a dork. Holy cow. Like, these guys are like, no, you can't touch. I was like, why is he not touching? He goes, because we're doing no hand of God. And he's like, all right, wait, make sure you get the strap right here and then roll it over. Oh, whoa. All right, cool, we're cool. All right, let's go. And they're driving around together, following each other around the trails.
So the other motor, it just connects to the radio.
So there's actually a separate. So people are using a third channel for the servo.
Okay.
And they'll do either servo winches. Now here's again where from turning it into a scale hobby into a competition. So because these courses are timed, you have scale winches. They look like worn winches. There's companies that make licensed winches, and they will pull out, and they can pull 75, 100 pounds on the power. And you run them from your transmitter. There's a third channel there. And so it'll winch out, but it works like a real winch. A real winch is slow, right? Well, in comps, you've got 6 minutes to make the course. If you have to winch, you need to winch fast. So now these guys are taking these high-end, super fast servos, and they're literally pulling them in and out in 2 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, like literally a normal winch is like, if you go a foot and a half, it's like 15 seconds. These things are like 3 seconds, and it's all time because every bit of time makes a big difference. It gives you more time to try and get through the courses. So it's crazy how you've gone through the scale side. It's turning into competition because people have fun and they want to start competing against each other, and they start creating these rules and all these different types of things, and everybody's trying to take it to the next level of following that rule, or taken to the edge of the line. So in everything, it seems like from scale off-roading to even bashers are starting to get into having some racing stuff. And I've actually seen, and I think it's because of COVID as well, we've seen a lot of people doing more of the back what do they call it? Back to the roots racing type of stuff, where people are digging trails out of a park, and people are running a parks, making a course, and they're going racing.
Yeah, I mean this is also a out of the box, or this is you have to put this together.
So this is out of the box, the way it comes out of the box. Okay. And again, because there's so much competition out there in this scale category, we had to take it to the next level where we added the molded fender details, the little hood clips, windshield wipers, the side mirrors, the tail lights, everything operates. It's got an interior, has a roll cage. has a driver with a hat. You know, we had to paint a skin tone to it so that you didn't just have this ghost or just this dark figure in there. We had to do that type of stuff too to just bring it to the next level. And then on top of that, we have 2-speed as an option for this vehicle, so you can run between high and low speed. And then we have what's called dig. And a dig feature, and it's not something you could do on you wouldn't do normally on a regular Jeep, but these things have locked differentials. So when you have a locked differential, it's hard for it to make a turn. Well, the dig, we've set it up so you hit a little switch. And it locks the rear end. It disengages the drive for the rear and locks it so it's like anchored, and then the front will pull it left or right so you can tighten your steering radius.
Really?
Yeah, and that's one of our features out of the box is that it has dig. You can actually do that with it.
So that's built, this one that has dig on it?
Yeah.
So this, and it's basically done from, it's in this box right here?
So yeah, you have the main transmission, and inside the transmission we designed this little cog system that will it actually pulls back, and the drive shaft is hooked to a little cog that will then key it into this piece.
And that's all off like a servo?
A little micro servo.
A little micro servo that you can switch on to the channel of the radio.
Yep, there's literally a little button right here.
And that's the dig button.
Yep, you push the button and it locks the rear drive. You spin it around, you let go of it, and it automatically goes back into full drive. So these ready-to-run radios come with like 3 channels maximum. So we had to pick which one. But if a consumer really wants to, they could take the transmission apart, set up 2-speed, get a different radio and run 4 channels, and they can now have high and low speed and the dig. So the features for ready-to-run vehicles has really changed from when it first started out, where it was, okay, it's pre-assembled, and now you just get a battery and charger and you run it. Now we're starting to add a lot of these features in there that you got to have all these cool features. Now this vehicle has a smart technology. You can see how much runtime you have in your battery. You can operate the dig. It's running on 2.4 megahertz. You know, we even added this little thumb steer here.
Oh,
I don't recommend it, but you can hold your beer and you can still drive at the same time.
Yeah. Know? Oh, wow. Yeah. But I mean, that's so fascinating of how far technology has come.
Yeah.
You know, how far, and the scale of, because I remember back, we didn't really have any of these rock crawls. I remember back when you were starting, this is back, I think, when I saw you years ago, like, we're getting into rock crawling or building. These are the concepts at that point.
Right.
And now they've created a full market for themselves.
Yes. And it's huge. It's huge.
How much competition does Horizon have in this market? Or are you guys dominating the...
Axial was the Axial brand. We acquired them about 3 years ago.
Oh, so they're an acquisition.
Okay. Prior to that, they had started out. They kind of got in the right place at the right time. The guys at Axial, and we still have a lot of the guys that work there. They were true enthusiasts of real Jeep stuff and real off-road stuff, and they got into RC as well. And they started developing this, what they considered this segment. Started seeing this, and what happened, just like racing started. People were having to take this axle and this thing from this monster truck, and then they were cutting aluminum plates and putting links and stuff to make their own little rock crawler. Well, the guys at Axial saw this and said, wait a second, why don't we just make one that's purpose-built? So they came to market with the first rock crawler, and that was it. I mean, they had the market covered. Everybody had it. And they lived it too. So that was kind of cool with their marketing and branding, is that they lived the rock crawling, off-roading side of the business and the lifestyle. Once that took off, though, you do have a lot of Chinese factories producing vehicles, because there's a lot of manufacturing. We know everybody manufactures overseas. So you had a lot of those companies, and then you have, even Associated. Team Associated. It used to be, so back in the day, it was Team Associated, Team Losi. Yeah. That was it. You had Kyosho and Tamiya, but they weren't really hardcore racing, but it was Tamiya or Associated and Losi. Well, as time has gone by now, even Associated has rock crawlers. They've had to get into the scale market.
Diversified.
They had to diversify. Yeah, because of demand. Because they see that's a big... The racing side of it is still strong and is actually probably bigger than it has been in several years, but it's a very small piece of the pie. I'd say probably 95% of the consumers are bashers, crawlers.
Because the demand, I mean, the scale. I mean, there aren't that many professional RC car racers like we were back in the day. You know, there was when I used to race RC cars, people were like, what do you mean race orbit control? The ones you buy on in the toy store?
Right.
I'm like, no, you know, but then when you get into it, you break it down, it's fascinating how to scale.
Yeah.
But how you say is how the demand for this, well, of course, I think the internet's changed that because the scale, everybody can see these actually hobbies, there's hobbies toys. They can get into them, so there's more demand. It's creating that demand. But I want to take it back to from the 90s or 80s and 90s when we had the concepts to be able to build the cars. Now, as you say, going to China or having more technology, 3D technology, building parts right away, building test parts right away. So that's being able for you to scale much faster, right?
Oh, yeah, scale and test product and test ideas, because back in the day when you were racing, John Anderson and Gil Losi Jr. would go into the machine shop.
Correct.
They would draw it up on some new 3D software, you know, or 2D software, and they would draw it up and then go in the machine shop and they would make Delrin arms or pivot plates or whatever we were using to make these vehicles. Now we can just 3D print these things and we could test something in the same day. I mean, it used to take sometimes, you know, John would have to go out there and take him a week to make a certain part. No, it's literally one day. We could get it in the same day if we wanted to. From concept in the morning, like, hey, let's try doing a different camera position. Cool. The engineer will make a modification of the part, send the step file or the STL file over to the 3D printer, print it, drop it on the car. Frank Root is one of our main guys at TLR. He'll go down to the track or go to a little private test track that we have and test it and just get a feel for it right away and give us an idea of, okay, that did make a change. We can start moving forward like that.
Yeah, because I remember, I mean, even the plastic mold injection and all the stuff to go through the composites and materials, it took a while. It's expensive. All the tooling was very expensive.
Yeah.
Now you guys can quantify those results so much faster with the 3D printing and doing it. And then it's okay. Now we're going to full production. We can send it to the contractors or the China contract manufacturers you have, and they can build it just like that.
Yeah.
And then turn it around and bring it to market much quicker.
Yes.
Especially for the hobbyist enthusiast side. And I mean, racing is there, but if the demand's there, the scale is much faster.
Yeah, it used to be, you know, talking about developing a car, like with Losi back in those days, we would have a new car maybe once every year and a half, and maybe...
Or just a revision.
Or a revision of a vehicle. Right, it'd be like every year and a half now. Now, although we have now we have more compliance stuff to get involved with, so that kind of slows us down a little bit, but we can literally go from concept to ship within 12 months on a vehicle, and it can be, it also depends on what it might be based off. If it's a ground-up new platform, it'll probably take 18 months to 2 years to develop a brand new platform. But if it's something like we're making a variation of this particular vehicle, you can usually bust through a thing and get it done in 12 months. So our bosses like for us to get it in 12 months.
Oh yeah, I mean at the end of the day, it's all about the money at that point. It's all about the money.
How soon can you get it out there? Yeah.
I mean, I want to jump into, like, we can get into these cars. I mean, I have my old school 90s car. I mean, we can get into how I like to break this down. I mean, and we have, this is the old school car, and here's the newer school. It's not the newest, but just similar as the newest.
Right. You know what blows my mind too is that just when I keep thinking we've peaked on what we can do to these cars, and they keep coming up with new things to make them better and faster and faster. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since you've been to a track, but if you've been down and watched these guys racing now, it's like what our used to be on-road racing. They're so fast now, and I'm too old now to even think I could even keep up with turning and driving them.
I agree, because, you know, maybe taking that to scale, I mean, I've seen it's just like carpet racing, off-road carpet racing. And for me, it's like, kind of took that, like, okay, it's faster, it's more precision, but it kind of like took that, okay, the dirt.
Right.
Like, but, you know, going to that, because I've seen it, it's unbelievable how precision it is. The coordination of, you know, everything is precise to how they turn. Yeah. But going back to this, if you're going to see my bodies, these people who are watching this will probably know my body. I'm famous for like the pink and blue flames of my body. Yeah, peak of that. But yeah, you can see, I mean, the difference of, this is the 90s car. These cells, 2,000 milliamp batteries, were matched. We brought it through. Here's the speed controller, the receiver. We had an antenna. This is the basic antenna and crystals. This is a crystal based, and the motor. You can see the motor is a commutator. I mean, these are the commutator.
Yeah. Well, you think about this. I mean, just this 6-cell pack. Yeah. We used to have guys go through 300 cells and match them and check them and then put them together. And at the level that you were competing at, you were fortunate enough to get the top 3% of batteries that were available out there. because it was important for marketing and advertising that you guys won.
Correct.
Because you could sell, what wins on Sunday
Correct.
sells on Monday. And so, yeah, I mean, just thinking about the technology that was involved with the batteries, all the chargers, all this, I mean, it was just crazy.
I mean, it was. I mean, to some of the people who have been into this, listen to this, having enthusiasts, I mean, we were so precision on these cars that there's anti-squat, caster between the point of the arms, the material of the arms, I mean, everything, I mean, between the travel, millimeters of spacers can change the car from hooking up, how it goes in the corner, how it steers between I mean, there's so much involved that some people say, oh yeah, it's just a toy.
Right.
And I'm like, you guys don't know that. It's the real, just like the F1, it's precision to the point. That little bit of travel or anti-squat, or if you add a little more toe in or toe out on a track, can be that quarter of a second that you need.
Tenth of a second,
hundredth of a second for those lap times.
Yeah.
To go through there. And I mean, these batteries, this car ran probably 5 minutes, and that was it. That's all we got compared to now. This is the newer school, the technology we have the LiPo battery, right? And lithium ion battery, and everything is smaller. The speed controller is completely transformed. It's just the Vortex controller with the receiver and everything. It's just, like I said, suspension looks similar.
Right.
The electronics are complete, and this is a brushless motor. It's sensor-based, brushless motor. It goes forever.
Yeah, that's the thing, too.
Yeah.
You used to have to pop your motor out after every run, give it to your motor guy. We used to have to bring a motor guy.
Yep.
And he would just cut the comm, put new brushes in, break the motor for you for every run.
Every run.
You run these things till you blow them up. I mean, they just run forever.
Yeah, and it is so fascinating because even on this, like I had diodes, you had to pass them back in. I mean, these are things that we had to do. I mean, just to make sure the performance, there was no glitching, there was no the heat of it, because it did happen back then. Technology wasn't that advanced.
Yeah.
But now it comes to these. I mean, this can be, you can buy. I mean, and one other thing is that we used to take these things apart every day and put them back together. I mean, I know probably still at that scale.
Yeah, at that level.
At that level, there's still. I mean, people don't really realize, like, after a day of racing, we had probably 3 heats or 2 qualifiers or 3. We would go back to the hotel, and we would break the whole car down. Imagine what classes. I used to run 3 or 4 classes. I used to run 4-wheel, 2-wheel, truck, the off-road truck, and we used to break all of them down, clean them, just basically prep them, just like a brand new car, and ready for the morning.
Yep.
And ready for the morning to get that thing. So you have, there's no reason. I mean, as I said, you want to have precision at the time, especially with tires too.
Right.
Because now that's coming back to it, as you talk about, when cars can run now for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, has the racing for the competitive side, the time changed? When racing was still in that 5-minute range?
I think they go 8 minutes
8 minutes now.
So the time has increased on the racing. And then also, I think that's why a lot of the surfaces have changed as well, because now they're running very small pin tires. I mean, we were running small pin tires, as you can see there, but now they're running on artificial turfs like grass, carpet. Most of the tracks now are hard packed clay. There's not a lot of outdoor racing anymore. And taking that next step of the technology to pick up that other 100th is tire warmers. We're warming the tires.
We're warming the tires now?
So they'll sauce them.
Well, I knew back in the on-road we used to do that, but not in off-road.
No, they do an off-road. You warm the tires. And there's a new segment, and we'll keep talking about this, but there's another segment of racing that's taken off is drag racing.
I saw a video of drag racing.
So Street Outlaws is a big show on Discovery Channel that people have watched, where they have these street racers, and even though they're driving like $500,000 cars that they're calling street cars, whatever. But that has taken off and has gotten people into wanting to do on the RC scale side. So now they've taken, and it's kind of cool because it's interesting how our hobby can transition products into different things. So short course truck racing was very big for a while in electric off-road. And basically it's based off of our 2-wheel drive trucks, but it has longer arms or longer chassis, wider arms, and then we would put what looked like a trophy truck body on top of it, and that was the racing. Now that group blew up because you had a body that could bounce off other bodies, and made it more fun, because with these things, they get tangled in the wing or in the shock towers, you're stuck on the track, whatever. Those things, you could bounce off each other and have fun. So that category was doing pretty well in off-road. Well, someone decided to make a large body of a Chevy Nova that would fit over the top of those things, and made some slicks and skinny front tires.
The scale. Trying to hold you.
That is a whole new category of craziness. So they just had, the Vegas, I think they called it the Vegas Nationals or whatever. It was a cash pot. The winner took home $18,000.
Wow.
They had people from all over the country, Hawaii, Alaska. I don't think it was Alaska. Hawaii, New York. I mean, everywhere they came out. And this is what was crazy. You got one test pass, and it was a single elimination. That was it.
Basically like a real drag.
Like a real drag. That was it. There was none of this. You get 2 qualifiers and a main. You get to go in from the B main and bump. No. It was one practice run, single qualifier. They ran it all in one day. And it was like, I forget how many people. It was like 200 racers, 300 racers. That guy took home $18,000 in cash. Wow. Although they didn't really show it because they had a coverage on TV. So everybody's like, oh, it was Monopoly money. No, it was real deal cash. And again, that's a whole nother category that's getting crazy. We have ready to runs. Losi just came out with a new drag car that we've put some really nice electronics in it. It's a really great product out of the box, so you can race it. We added some more scale detail, so it has molded bumpers. That's a 69 Camaro. I didn't have one I could bring. But now that whole category is doing the same thing. Now these guys are warming the tires. Now you run them with foam. Now they're belting the tires. They are adjusting the weight balance, the sway bar, or some running sway bars, some are not, wheelie bars. I mean, you name it, it's out there. But they're all, it's kind of going back to the grassroots thing I was talking about, is these guys are going out and meeting in these little industrial complex areas on the weekends when there's not a lot of traffic, and they're closing off a little section of road and drag racing.
Well, technology allowed us to nerd out with forums and things and getting together, and that has brought everybody so much closer than it was in hobby enthusiasts before, because in my time we didn't have that.
Right.
We were just, as you know, when Rich was my team manager, we traveled all over the states, over the world.
Right.
And people don't realize, I mean, just like you said, like all these little things, if I would spend hours, with my mentor, I would say Brian Kinwald, rest in peace.
Right.
He was a legend. And I spent so much time with him, and we would go through, just like you said, like different composite of arms. We would test arms, chassis, and we would do lap times. I mean, we would spend till 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
We were testing.
Yep.
Testing to get the perfect thing for that track, or testing the product. Even some of the stuff we did was for production too, because he was doing a lot of production testing. We're testing it, how much flex it had, how much it felt. Oh, this felt amazing. My car was, but it's half a second slower.
Yeah.
But you never realized, because the car felt so much better because it had more traction, more hooked up, or you can see it flex in the air off jumps and it lands. But then, okay, we go full graphite. We are on rails, but that thing could fly off the tree. These are things that, in every scale, that's how precision people are getting on the competitive side, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even think about the shock oil. When shock oil first started out, it was they take this weight and this weight and mix it 50-50 and whatever. We got to where we had to get what I think it's called a Cinestoke meter, and we would we measure our oils within a certain tolerance so that they are consistently 10, 15 weight, 20 weight, 25, and so on. Because when you went out to the track and drove, if you put a bottle of 25 weight in your car and it was dialed and you needed to rebuild your shocks, and you went and put another,
it didn't match.
If it didn't match, your car wouldn't handle right, and you'd be scratching your head like, what happened? Yeah. So that's how crazy it got with even shock oil. We had to take it to that level.
Well, shock oil, the pistons, everybody has precision. We were putting in the holes ourselves sometimes and changing that. I mean, I know it's similar to what it is back then, but it's more of it's got more and more precision as it gone.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also taken some of the car vulnerabilities out. It's more driver now, you would say. The driver is even though back then, driver was a big thing because we did, but it was more testing. I think we did a lot more testing. Now, the batteries, the motors, the speed controls, servos, those are set.
Yeah. You just buy your setup.
Just buy your setup. Good. It's done.
Yeah, and you can program to, like let's say you're not very good in the turns, coming out of turns on power. You can delay the power through programming when it's going to come out, and then it's going to give you turbo boost down the straightaway when your tires are straight. So yeah, even that has changed now. Before, back in our days, we
were the linear curve. So we change the speed control because we can either do it from a little bit. We had it was all like linear from our controller, or would you get it plug into the old school speed controllers, and we can change it a little bit.
But the bottom line is, you still had to. It was still all here. Nowadays you can change it, and that's what's happened with the drag racing. They're taking advantage of what we've done with the electric off-road racing. Is they're using those speed controllers, and they're adjusting their timing and their boost to come on at certain times so they can get out of the hole. And this all happens in 132 feet in less than 2 seconds. And they're adjusting how the power comes on so they don't spin the tires.
I mean, it's unbelievable. As I said, the scale and where the industry has gone. And as I said, I get so excited because I can go back. I have trophies and things that I was going to, and it was a career. I mean, a lot of friends like yourself, or a lot of friends I was still racing. It was a career back then. I mean, that's what I say. How is that? The racing it's gotten bigger. I mean, there's a lot of kids back in my day, or their careers, their lives are racing.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think blows a lot of people's minds too, is that we had paid drivers, and we paid drivers. We still pay drivers. There are guys that's what they do for a living. Yeah. They literally just race RC cars. And I know that blows people's minds, but that's their career. But there's so much on the line. Again, it's just like it is. You win on Sunday, you sell on Monday. Yeah. So if you have a consistent person who's driving really well, especially now with social media, there's so much information gets out, and you see this guy regularly winning with his car, people want to try it. They want to know why and what it is. And that is still there. It's not quite as big as it was because it has transformed. Back then, it was basically racing was the big thing, and there was no ready-to-run vehicles. It's kind of flip-flop now. It's a much smaller segment of RC, but it's still a very powerful message for our brands to have TLR winning, because TLR technology goes down into axial and low C, and ARMA is one of our other divisions.
Business divisions,
It all makes a big difference. So we still use that part of it, and it's still a very important category of racing, because people just love to race and they want that technology, and the cars have gotten way better too. Frank Root is again head of our TLR side of it when it comes to electric racing. And I mentioned all our guys are passionate. I'm Mr. Rock Crawler, and we have Frank. He's our buggy guy. We have all the guys are all into their things, and Frank has made a concerted effort at making these buggies as intimidating as they may seem to be. You can still take one right out of the box and go pretty darn fast with it, and not have to worry about how much you've dialed it in. And then you can take it to the next level and dial in for those tenths and hundredths of a second, that type of stuff. And that's where Frank has made these things that, it's great to have a car that's well balanced right out of the box. You get new people that have come over from a scale crawler or a basher, and they want to try racing because they went to a local hobby shop and they had a racetrack. They want to try it. That's where it's been a key thing, is to have our guys be able to develop these vehicles that can actually be easier for people to drive out of the box.
I mean, it is, because when I was just taking back from a kid, I was 10 years old, our first car, and then there was a local track here in Southern California, Costa Mesa, RCH. RCH, I was probably 12 years old, and I saw these kids, and my parents bought me, I think at first I had an RC10. I think that was my first race kind of
hobby grade
car, instead of a Tamiya lunchbox or whatever, grasshoppers that are back there. And that was, but that was it, and that's the start. And I just saw people racing, and I could see that a lot of. And I think there was more tracks here in Orange County. There still is track here in Orange County, but it was that was my passion, and I could see that it took it to that point where I got really competitive, to the point where I was sponsored, traveling the world.
You were a good driver. You were young and you were fast.
I was one of the, back now there's a lot of young ones, but I was one of the youngest back then. I was one of the youngest. I think I was 15 when I got sponsored, and I was traveling, and everybody was in their 20s and 30s. And And Richard was my team manager, responsible for me running around and what we used to do. And, I traveled. People's like, oh, you travel with your parents? I'm like, no, I was traveling with my teammates. And these are things that we did. And it was, I traveled to different continents. I traveled to different places. I was a multinational champion. I had different classes, and I raced from off-road, I raced on-road, I raced gas. We got into all of this. So there is such a market that, and yes, when I got older, things changed. I went a different route, but overall, it's my roots, as you say, back to the roots, are still here. And because of the competitive nature, I love racing. Right. The reason I got RC cars, my parents never let me race real cars. So it's dangerous. Yeah. So they spent money on me to race these cars, and I would spend hours. I would spend 10 to 12 hours minimum a day at the track. Even after school, I used to walk local here, RC. Was it back then? It was RC. Oh, after RCH was
SoCal.
RCH. No, there was the one right down the street. RC. Oh, I forgot what the name was. Now it's
I know which one you're talking about.
RCHR. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Then it came to SoCal after that. Yeah, and then M&M and all the ones back in the days. These are things that we reconnect, and it's so fascinating how all things changed. Yeah, I'm still trying how the technology, because our business is in electronics. Mm-hmm. And full 360, of this is all these components that we sell these components to manufacturers that make these components for Horizon, because Horizon, of course, has their own with the different brands. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the industry I was from. Why am I not talking to the same business that I used to be? Because I sell, our company distributes and sells all these components.
Well, that's how this whole thing came about, right?
About it because of the supply chain issues of the world, So that coming to full circles, how is the business in the pandemic hit? How was the business in the last year?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate. You hear some industries have been hurting and some industries have blown up.
Yeah.
Just like I like to mountain bike. Yeah. That's my hobby on the side. Just like the bicycle industry, our industry has just blown up. I mean, it's amazing how many people have reached out to me like, hey, do you still work for Horizon or Losi? And can you just give me an RC car? That type of stuff. It's funny how many people come out because obviously with the whole COVID situation and the pandemic, we were all stuck in the house or within our little area. We could go to a park by ourselves and people started wanting something to do. And it was amazing how many people were. I mean, I was starting to see RC cars in my neighborhood that I've never seen anybody out there. It's like all of a sudden I see people driving cars. We know the sound of an RC car. We hear the spur gear of the motor. Someone's driving an RC car. So on that end of it, it has blown up. But then it has created those challenges, and that's where these phone calls have come in. Is the supply chain has been tough for us too because we've grown so dramatically fast that it's been hard to keep up. I mean, it's just crazy right now. I mean,
in all areas, right? Because you guys do the air, the planes,
the boats, trains.
The
trains have had it. We have Athearn, which is our train division. Again, they're the other guys in Southern California. We don't really see them very much, but they were another product or brand that we acquired several years ago. So we have those guys, and again, that's what is cool about Horizon is they have people that are into this.
Yeah,
the train guys. Holy cow, you think RC car guys are dorks? Man, those guys, they're into it. And I have total respect for them. And I love when we have our quarterly meetings, or when we haven't been able to have one, obviously, for obvious reasons. We'd have the quarterly meetings, and those guys would come out and share product, and I'd start picking their brains like, oh, yeah, well, this train has the tagging on it, so you have to put the tag mark on it. And I'm like, wow. But, yeah, so the whole supply chain thing has been a big problem for us right now because there's just so much demand for what we need. And then besides the popularity, we have really good product. And it's a lot easier for people to get into it now. And so we've been fortunate through this pandemic that people have picked up these hobbies and found out how good they are, how easy they are, how much more fun it is now than remembering back in the day when they had a nitro car and they couldn't get it to run, or the battery would die in 3 minutes and then they have to go charge it again. Those days are gone. They've changed now, so it's a lot better.
Yeah, technology. I mean, brings families together. It brings kids and family. I mean, there's always the silver lining in that. And with the hobby enthusiast through these years of my years of racing RC cars and your years, but how it's changed and the pandemic has pushed that and accelerated everything.
Yeah,
supply chain. So right now, I mean, you guys are, of course, in electronics. I think electronics are the biggest challenge for you guys right now.
Right.
To get the components to build all the electronics that go into the vehicles because. Yeah. If one of your top markets is ready to run, you can't put the product into ready to run.
Right. Yeah, we can shoot all the plastic and get all the machine parts that we need. It's the electronics that have been the tough part of it because, again, the chipsets and stuff that we're using now for these types of frequencies and what we're demanding out of these electronics now has changed from back in the day when it was fairly basic, quite frankly. And so that's a challenge for us. And then on top of that, it's besides the growth of the amount of people doing it, we've also the growth of the types of cars you can get. When we were doing it early on, it was a two-wheel drive buggy, a four-wheel drive buggy, maybe a quote-unquote monster truck, and then you had on-road racing. You had some boat racing and some airplane racing, but it was very small. Now, rock crawlers, monster truck racing, drag racing, electric, nitro, fifth scale. I ran a fifth scale project. Fifth scale gas. You name it. There's all the. Micros. Micros are probably one of our biggest.
Really?
Yeah. They blew up this year because our micro little rock crawlers. We make little rock crawlers like this. You can get an hour runtime on a little 150 milliamp battery pack, and they're all-wheel drive, and they come with lights, and they look like a Jeep, and you can run them over your mouse pad or your books and whatever. And people are setting up courses in their garage or in their house and whatever, and that has blown up. So it's like, it's everywhere, and they start with the small one, and then they want the big one, and then they want, I've seen that, and I went to my hobby shop, and I went to this track to go buy a battery, and I saw this race track. I want to get a 22 buggy and go race that, and that's where it's gone crazy.
I mean, these are, I love it because, as I said, this whole conversation came back because of supply chain disruption that we're helping Horizon with, and it's bringing me back to the roots. And I'm so happy that I have you here and talk, because we can go down rabbit holes and talk about the old days,
right?
But as I said, it's really interesting, and to see where the scales have gone and how the business units of the RC car racing and the hobbies enthusiast has scale, because everything is becoming a scale. Right. Every type of motor vehicle that had a big motor vehicle has come to scale, and there's a lot of enthusiasts out there because, of course, the big cars are expensive.
Right.
So they can't afford to spend thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the big scale.
Yeah.
They can bring it down to a small scale and still have competitive nature.
Yeah.
And the social media worlds of the forums and all the things people can connect, because we are all nerds in our own way. We geek out in certain things that we try to dive in, and we have commonality. It's a lot of common, a lot of common things. I mean, as you say, common hobbies that we like,
right? And
interests that we come to, and this is what brings us back.
Yeah,
this brings us back into this.
Yeah, it's crazy, full circle.
So, what is your? I mean, to wrap this up a little bit, what's your outlook in the future? What do you think right now with your guys with Horizon? Do you guys have projects in play? Do you have business strategies or something they can share with us? What do you think the future of the next 3 to 5 years will bring for the hobby enthusiasts?
There's I've been around it so long. We've never been through pandemic and dealt with this type of thing. I've never seen this type of growth before either. So it's a little scary. We have, as a developer too, I'm involved in the PO meetings because we're the closest to the product. We can talk to the purchasing team, the sales team, and everybody, and here's what's cool about it, what's not, and why I think. Well, we're recommending numbers now that I was like, oh my God, there's no way I would have said that before, because we'd have a bunch of inventory left over if we took that type of a chance. Well, now we're having to react to this market and come up with it. I think that because it was like a perfect tsunami for us, I think the fact that people are able to get back into these things and seeing how much fun they are and how easy they are, that I think we're just going to continue to grow the hobby. And I think it's going to get bigger and bigger. We're on top of the fact that now we're able to address different types of categories. Losi just came out with a brand new monster truck. It addresses not only the RC monster truck fans, but full-size monster truck fans, because the scale, the detail, we're getting more into scale. Drifting is another small category of RC cars people are getting into. There's so many different segments of real life art cars that we can get into. I mean, do we someday make a donk? Because that's what they like in back in the East Coast. Is there enough people buying them? But would they buy them with a 30-inch scale wheel on it? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying we're doing that, but I think that there's, on top of that, plus the technology that we're coming up with, it's only going to get better and easier to drive these things. I mean, real quick, one example I'll give you is the charging systems. Back when we used to charge the batteries, you had to watch them. You had to make sure it hit the peak, and if you saw it start to dump, you unplug the battery. Right. One of the other problems I've always had with people is telling them how to use a lithium polymer battery, because they're volatile.
It's sensitive.
If they're sensitive. You don't watch them, you could have one burn up and whatever happens. Well, now, because of the technology, our chargers recognize the battery that you're plugging into it. They can give you a history of the battery. They can tell you if you need to charge it. They'll charge automatically, it stops automatically. The battery itself will put itself into a sleep mode if it hasn't been used for a certain amount of time. There's a chip now inside this battery that is doing this. So people don't have to worry about that anymore. So I think that we're only going to see more growth. I mean, obviously once we get out of this pandemic, people are going to be doing a lot more outdoor stuff, but I still think they've been grabbed by the bug and they really like these things. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, technology has advanced. We're in my opinion, a technology revolution in the 2020s, and the pandemic accelerated us.
Yeah.
We've had the .com in 2000, the Y2K, everybody knew that .com era.
Right.
We're now 20 years later in a technology revolution because of the technology of computing, power. Everything's cloud-based, everything's handheld. Who knew 20 years ago we'd have a supercomputer in our pockets running around every day. But with the technology that now scales it to vehicles and the reliability, the fun, they can drive it out. And for any type of hobby from any age, from an adult to all the way to kids, that they can share these things and they don't have to worry about all the minutia that goes around. They can just ready to run, plug it in, charge it, durable.
Right.
And it's a blast.
Yeah.
It's a blast. So technology has really allowed, I think, a lot industries like RC, the hobbyist RC, radio control cars, really accelerate through this. And the pandemic was, I guess I would say as a little fuel in the fire.
Yeah,
you know,
it
the
really
fuel in
did.
that fire that accelerated it. And now, it's amazing. You say those sensors and the ways they.
Yeah, I think one of the next things too for us also when we talk about the future is going to be more of the FPV style driving, because the cameras are getting better and the
really?
Video. Oh yeah. So there are some guys that will actually.
Well, I know drone racing is like
that.
that.
Yeah, so they use the drone racing, and if you watch drone racing, you'll still see where they get flickers and stuff where it's hard to see, but it's getting better. And now these guys are starting to put them in their RC cars, so it looks like you have a driver's view, and they're wearing their things and they're driving through their RC car and doing that stuff. It's like, it's crazy, and it's something that I think we need to focus on, because my son, who could care less about RC cars, he's just not into it. Again, he's been around them. He used to be my tester at 4 years old. He'd smash into a curb and I could have him test. But he's into the VR stuff and computing and gaming. And we need to find a way for that generation to want to do what these things are, but we need to address that. Mm-hmm. And is it a game controller for an RC, to control the car? Maybe that'd be something easy for them to pick up. Mm-hmm. Or is it the FPV view where these guys can wear these goggles and drive it? There's a lot there for us to start looking into. And we've been looking into it, but it's like,
have you tested some yet?
We actually tested some stuff a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
The only problem we had was a range issue. It was a range issue.
It's going to get better. Over time.
Yeah, and we had some electronic interference as well back then as well. So you start to get fuzzy views and stuff. Yeah. But it was really cool to put goggles on and like you're driving an RC car that you're looking at like you're in a real car. It was weird because you could see the steering wheel and stuff.
I would imagine like on a track, and if you had a full track and you're because the first view or that first person view of in the car compared to being people in the video games, you can change the view of you look over the car in the car. Most people don't like to be in the car because you can't see the turns. You can't see what's ahead of you.
Right.
So that really changes the whole perspective. People say F1 cars, you see, this looks easy. You understand, in the car, you don't see any of those turns or the grades or the changes of elevation and the speed that you're going.
And to do it as fast as they do it. That's crazy.
It is as fascinating. That's the same thing on the scale of a car. When these cars are going 30, 40 miles an hour straightaway or 50 miles an hour straightaway, it's like, okay, I have to turn here every time at the same time.
Right.
And I'm first person, I'm viewing that through a VR, and it's,
We actually had released a small run of little crawlers that had that vision with the little FPV camera on there so you could see it. And it did okay. But again, the technology at the time wasn't there, and it was kind of you'd lose range and that type of stuff. But it was pretty cool. I just think now we're getting closer to where we're going to be able to start really doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. I can't wait to the future, and I'm so happy to have you come back to this and talk about really talk about, the Horizon has actually taken over the RC world, because I know, we knew back then, but Tower Hobbies was Tower. I remember they acquired Tower Hobbies. People knew back in the day, Tower, this was the catalog house,
right.
Right. Everybody bought theirs, and now they've taken that over and bought all the other smaller business units of Losi and all the other companies.
It's been quite a transition too for the company, because you have to go from distribution to now you're marketing,
manufacturing
and all that stuff. Yeah, it's nice because you get a bigger margin because obviously you're making and selling your own product, but at the same time too, there's a lot more involved in there, getting into that marketing aspect and getting into these things. But like I said, they're really good at hiring the people that are passionate about these cars and categories and planes and boats and trains and accessories and tires and you name it. Anything you can make for this stuff, we got guys that are into it. So it's been cool.
Well, if everybody's listening, you guys know where to go to horizonhobby.com. It's horizonhobby.com.
Horizonhobby.com.
Anything you need is there. Anything you need. And if you buy one of these rock crawlers, something breaks, you know who to talk to.
Yeah.
You know who to come to.
Yeah, get a hold of Rob, and I'm sure he'll get a hold of me.
Well, very good, Richard. Thank you so much for coming on. Dude, it's been awesome catching up, going over this. And I cannot wait to see what's next.
Yeah, I can't wait to get your credit card number again. I'm going to get some more stuff.
Get some more stuff. And get my kids in. My kids are like 3, going 4 and 5 this year. Right. Their time. It's perfect time to get them involved.
It's perfect time, and they're going to start getting into it. I expect that call.
Going to the track. track. I'm going to the track. Hey, I'm going to the track. I got to get these cars. But the ready to run is key. Well, those are the key.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, you got a lifetime deal with me. So it may not be as free as it used to, and you're not going to get a check anymore. But if your kids want to get into it, if he's going to have some of the talent that you got, it'll be worth grooming that so we can get him on our team.
Exactly. Well, thank you, and thanks for coming again. And remember, guys, horizonhobby.com is where to go to get all your hobbyist needs. All right. Thanks.